Paris, 1925. The Eiffel Tower groans under its own weight, iron rusting, paint peeling, critics calling it an eyesore that should never have survived the World's Fair. Newspapers whisper about costs, politicians argue behind closed doors, and the city quietly looks for a way out. Most people saw a decaying monument. One man saw closing sale. Because when institutions hesitate, someone else writes the contract. The Eiffel Tower was never meant to last. Built as a temporary spectacle for the 1889 World's Fair, it stood on Parisian soil by accident more than by design, tolerated, not loved. By the 1920s, its iron skeleton was expensive to maintain, dangerously rusted, and deeply unpopular with much of the public. Every repaint cost a fortune. Every year, officials debated whether keeping it made economic sense at all. Paris at the time was rebuilding its identity after World War I. Governments were stretched thin. Bureaucracies were slow. Trust in institutions was fragile. And behind the romance of cafes and couture, the city was quietly vulnerable. This is where the real story begins, not with crime in the streets, but with economics in government offices. Not with violence, but with paperwork. Not with theft, but with permission. Because the most powerful frauds in history don't break systems. They use them. And in 1925, one man understood that better than anyone alive. Victor Lustig did not begin as a criminal in the traditional sense. He began as an observer. Born in what is now the Czech Republic, Lustig grew up fluent in languages, manners, and social codes. He learned early that power rarely announces itself loudly. It whispers through confidence, posture, and paperwork. While others studied trades or titles, Lustig studied people, their fears, their ambitions. They need to be recognized as important. By the time he reached adulthood, Europe was fertile ground for someone like him. The early 20th century was an age of transition, empires collapsing, new governments forming, institutions expanding faster than their ability to verify themselves. Bureaucracy grew thick, authority became layered, and with every new layer came a gap. Lustig didn't exploit laws. He exploited assumptions. He understood a foundational truth of modern systems. Most people don't verify power, they defer to it. If a document looks official, if a man sounds authoritative, if the setting feels exclusive, skepticism dissolves. What mattered wasn't the truth. What mattered was credibility theater. When Lustig read a newspaper article about the Eiffel Tower's maintenance crisis, he didn't see a monument. He saw a system under pressure, a government embarrassed, a problem no one wanted public. Where others saw a liability, Lustig saw an opening. Because markets don't reward honesty. They reward timing. Lustig moved quickly, before doubt could harden into resistance. Using forged government stationery, he sent discreet invitations to 6 of Paris's most prominent scrap metal dealers. The location was deliberate, the Hotel de Crillon, a palace disguised as a hotel, a place where deals felt official simply because of the walls listening in. Inside its private rooms, Lustig delivered the pitch. He spoke calmly, formally, as a civil servant burdened by responsibility. The Eiffel Tower, he explained, had become a financial drain. Maintenance costs were soaring. Public sentiment was turning. The government, quietly and reluctantly, had decided to dismantle it and sell the iron as scrap. But this information, he stressed, was classified. Not because it was illegal, but because the public would riot if they knew. This single sentence did the real work. Secrecy created exclusivity. Exclusivity created urgency. Urgency shut down logic. The dealers leaned in. Lustig watched them carefully, not their wealth, but their posture, confidence, insecurity. He wasn't searching for the richest man in the room. He was searching for the one who needed this deal to be real. That man was André Poisson. Poisson wasn't established like the others. He was rising, desperate to belong, afraid of being exposed as an outsider. Lustig mirrored his ambition back to him, subtly, respectfully, until Poisson began selling himself the deal. When doubts surfaced, Lustig adjusted. He complained about his modest government salary, about the burden of his position, about the quiet corruption everyone already believed existed inside public office. And then he asked for a bribe. At that moment, the lie became believable. Because Poisson didn't think this was a scam. He thought this is how the world works. Poisson paid for the tower, and paid extra for silence. Within days, Lustig vanished to Austria with a suitcase full of cash, and Poisson, humiliated, never went to the police. Power didn't collapse that day. It simply changed hands. What made Lustig's scheme unstoppable wasn't luck, it was psychology in motion. He didn't rely on force. He relied on perception. Every element, the forged stationery, the luxurious hotel, the quiet tone of urgency, was a cog in an invisible machine of persuasion. He created scarcity where none existed. He framed secrecy as prestige. And he leveraged human greed like a lever, knowing exactly how much weight it could bear before snapping. The bribe, brilliant. In any ordinary scam, asking for extra money would raise alarms. But Lustig knew the unspoken assumption: governments are corrupt. Asking for a bribe confirmed rather than contradicted his authority. It turned suspicion into proof. 6 months later, he returned. A new group of dealers, a new pitch, a near repeat. But this time, the mechanism failed. One cautious dealer went to the police, forcing Lustig to flee, not because the scam had no structure, but because the players had changed. Lustig's genius lay in designing a system where credibility, timing, and psychology replaced capital, violence, or enforcement. He demonstrated a principle every modern strategist could study. Expertise is a costume, perception is currency, and greed is a powerful partner in every market. Even today, the Lustig Law whispers through boardrooms. If you can look the part, speak the part, and appeal to someone's ego or ambition, almost anything can be sold. Sometimes literally, the Eiffel Tower itself. The story of Victor Lustig isn't just about clever forgery or audacious fraud. It's about people. André Poisson wasn't a villain. He was ambitious, eager, and human. His pride, insecurity, and desire to be recognized made him the perfect mark. Lustig didn't break him. He exploited the very traits society rewards: ambition, risk-taking, and the hunger for status. Every bribe, every handshake, every forged letter carried more than cash. It carried consequences. Poisson's reputation was wounded, his confidence shaken. Yet the scandal never made headlines because humans rarely report embarrassment. Lustig understood the subtle truth. Humiliation often silences the same person greed has tempted. Beyond Poisson, Lustig's actions rippled through Parisian society. The audacity of selling the Eiffel Tower became legend, a cautionary tale whispered in cafes and offices. People saw that wealth, authority, and trust were fragile constructs, that perception could be manipulated as easily as paper. And Lustig himself, he became a mirror, reflecting society's unspoken assumptions about power and legitimacy. Every scam wasn't just a theft of money, it was a theft of certainty, a reminder that what people accept as truth is often just a performance. Through him, we see a simple but profound insight. Systems aren't just mechanical, they are human. And humans are complex, flawed, and predictable. Understanding that is the real currency of influence. Victor Lustig vanished, but his story lingers, not in newspapers, not in arrests, but in the lessons it leaves behind. He showed the world that power is often a performance, that authority can be fabricated, that greed, ambition, and ego are far more predictable than law or morality. Selling the Eiffel Tower wasn't just a crime, it was a masterclass in human behavior, timing, and perception. The audacity of his acts forces us to ask, how many opportunities around us are shaped not by reality, but by the stories we choose to believe? How often do we follow authority blindly, assuming legitimacy when it is merely a mask? Victor Lustig's exploits may seem like legend, but the mechanisms remain. Every handshake, every contract, every boardroom negotiation carries the echoes of the Eiffel Tower scam. And just like in 1925 Paris, those who understand perception, psychology, and timing will always have an advantage. So next time you witness an opportunity that feels too exclusive, too urgent, or too official, pause. Question: look beyond the surface, because the greatest scams aren't loud and the smartest frauds are quiet. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, comment your thoughts below, share it with someone who loves audacious history, and subscribe for more stories where strategy, psychology, and history collide. The world is full of lessons hiding in plain sight. Are you ready to see them?